Here I am now for what, almost a week, 6 days roughly since I checked into rehab. It's a humbling affair to admit, okay, you need to go to rehab. And I don't have a big following, so I'm guessing most of the guys that know me from this have probably trafficked through Willie OAM, which is totally fine. I look and feel a lot better. It's quite obvious. I actually get 8 hours of sleep now instead of like five. Um, I'm not loaded up on benzos as I was. You know, in a sense, I do owe an apology for him showing up to that in the state I was. But the other point in time, one thing he said that was just kind of off-putting. It's like, "Go home, mate." After an argument broke out in the Telegram chats. Like, where is home? It's a good story. Talk about where I grew up. So I grew up in a classical American middle class family with a house in the suburbs of Boston, had a sister, had a mother, had a father. Well, my father and mother are now dead. I don't really wish that upon anybody. Like, it's inevitable, but the reality is you actually become an adult a bit more once your parents die in some ways. Because you're also forced to deal with your own problems too. So my mother died of suicide, which was really lovely of Fletch, Daniel Liam Fletcher, to state that I should go the route of my mother and take her own life. That gives you the kind of I could screenshot this shit. I just don't have the time. No reason to lie about this. I'm talking off the top of my head. This is the style of YouTube that you're gonna get for at least this point in time. Yeah, so like people say stuff like that to you. You should off yourself like your mother. I've gotten countless death threats, like as I left Chosen, to the point where I made those threatening comments, and thereafter from members of Chosen and people who are not Chosen anymore, and so on and so forth. It's impossible to decipher. Nobody, how would you even begin to know if you're not part of that information loop that who is in that unit? So, to all the haters who are out there like, oh, you fucking piece of shit. Do you really think I meant to get a whole company wiped out? No, I didn't. Would I have cared? I would have cared for the people I liked there, but the problem was there was not many people I liked. Honestly, like most of the dudes there were to just shoot Russians. Most of them had no context about Ukraine, never lived there. Uh, People going around spreading conjecture about other units I served with. Well, that letter of recommendation stands. You don't write a letter of recommendation and recant it. Whatever Herolf said in afterwards, Herolf was a maniac. But anyways, yeah, I wish I had dealt with this whole ordeal, 22 and onwards, totally sober. But I had family issues going back home, and then I had a breakup of a long relationship, which I was just gutted, heartbroken. And then you add in the fact that the place that I was living in, Willie, the place I was living in, go home, just got overrun by Russians. And then this whole new Ukraine situation, it was so different before the war. Like going to Ukraine, it was totally different than what the foreigners now have seen. It's really no resemblance in terms of how the people are, how they think, how they talk. And naturally, of course, that's how it evolves with war. What was Ukraine like before the war? Well, imagine 25% of the population left. 25. So imagine like a quarter of the people left. And of that quarter, I don't know what percentage I could say really ever wanted to stay in Ukraine, to be honest. I mean, now obviously some people from the Donbass region have, they don't want to be in the line of contact. But there's a lot of people too that just left for convenience, and I don't blame them because economic opportunities, at the end of the day, and also who wants to fight in a war of attrition against Russia? Well, I did at one point, but most normal people don't. And so before the war, I'll tell you what it was like. Kiev, everybody was pretty chill with using Russian language. I don't have a dog in this fight. Like languages are languages. I was able to communicate with somebody, recently from Tajikistan in Russia, and I can communicate somebody from Kazakhstan in Russian, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Belarus, a good portion of Latvia, Moldova. All of Ukraine understands it for the most part, unless you go to the far west with young kids. Pretty much everybody can understand Russian, and people have kind of changed their language because of the politics of the war. And some of those people are more ideologically convicted, and other people are just kind of following suit. So before the war, most of the people didn't give a fuck about politics. Not a zero fuck given. They weren't a political people. Like, yes, Maidan happened, but there's also a lot of people who didn't like Maidan. Um, and there's also a lot of people most people are just apolitical. Kind of political discourse is not really norm for Russia or Ukraine or Belarus, like, as it is in the States, where people go on and they talk about politics sensibly amongst their peers. Well, now it's kind of a good thing that is happening in Ukraine because that's how you form a civil society. But before, yeah, I mean, in Crimea, like back in the 2000s, there were some pretty badass Russian hosted techno parties called Kazantip. I think they ended in 2014. Yeah, and it was just Russians and Ukrainians that would all go to there, and that was like their party. Things that people don't talk about, you know, things that people don't talk about. 10,000 Ukrainian soldiers defected at the start of the war. It's crazy. I mean, it's uncomfortable. I'm not here to trash Ukraine, but talk about it. In reality, millions of Ukrainians went to Russia. I wouldn't want to live in Russia, and I don't really agree with this decision, but there needs to be a little bit of balance about what there needs to be a bit of context about everything. You know, the country didn't just wake up one day and everyone hated Russians. It was a slow period over the past 30 years. Maybe in the West they always hated Russians, but I met plenty of people in the West that also prefer to speak Russian as well, so whatever. So my loyalty to the cause was to the people of Ukraine, not to the foreigners fighting it. Never was. In fact, I tried to get out of foreigner units, but just kept on finding my way in. And it's partially because Ukrainian units are reluctant to take foreign drone operators. Part of or they were, at least in my case. Everybody kind of throws like some dice on the table where they land up when they go the foreign fighter route. Some people play it smart. Some people play it stupid. Mm, I caused some controversy. It's so overplayed too with foreigners. I mean, imagine being the guy that shot down the F-16. It's, yeah, you know, I will go on in foreign fighter circles as some sort of infamous character. And that's fine. That's fine. So yeah, going through this rehab process, I'm starting to think clearer, feel better, look better. Uh, I'm really grateful for this experience, like, because I'm not paying for it, and it's on a massive estate, and it's only four patients, and it's in a giant mansion. So I could have never afforded this. So somebody's looking out for me. I think that's the point I want to raise. Somebody is looking out for me. Or I have a rich family. Oh, wait, they don't. They're dead. Used to have a rich family. Used to back in the day, but long ago. Not asking for pity about that, but just stating a reality of fact. Go home. Where is home? You know? I think this is part of like evaluating the addiction process or reality. It's like my mother was an addict, but she was a managed addict. She had a good job until the end, until it spirals out of control. It always spirals out of control at some point, or you just die of the effects of it. My sister, an addict, ex-addict. I don't know. The terminology in addict kind of subculture is like, well, are you always an addict or are you an ex-addict? Whatever. Semantics. Yeah, my father had a drinking problem, but I wouldn't call him like an alcoholic. But yeah, so I mean, there's a little bit of background about me. Imagine your parents are dead, the girl you love breaks up with you, and you go to fight a war, and you find yourself caught on first snagged in a Russian misinformation campaign in which they baited me pretty well. Um, and you first find your first unit, everybody defects, not defects. They call it? They pretty much mutinied against Rolf. It was all of us that mutually decided we're leaving this place. Rolf is an egomaniac, was an egomaniac. And in the second unit, I did my job, sending contracts as a drone operator. And up until the point where they pulled me off of doing drone operation duties, which there was not a lot of oversight about this, They were made me to do OP duties, then I resigned on my own. And then said I had an unfortunate blowout on my way out and kind of said some fuck yous. But was never kicked out of the Legion. If the Legion can prove that I was kicked out, by all means, they're welcome to. Till then, I'm just going to be sitting back and living well. I mean, outside of this room, which looks bland, I have a pretty much luxury resort to use pool, sauna, basketball court, chauffeur, private cook. My room will be upgraded, and I will be weaned off this addiction. And once I'm clear of all of this in my mind, just imagine the intellectual capacities that will be here. Because I'm an extremely intelligent person. I don't say that shyly because I'm autistic, like diagnosed autistic. So being that neurodivergent comes with some strengths. Like obviously, I can communicate in multiple languages and do lots of things, but meshing with really macho men that think they're tough, I can't read their emotions very well at all. That's why I learned to fight. Didn't have to. Once you learn to fight, you don't have to read people's emotions. You just become the bigger animal in the room. But yeah, 50,000 on Willie OAM. Cool views. Nice. I hit 250K in Poland on my TikTok the other day. Just talking about nothing. The audience I want, I can get on TikTok. YouTube, yes, at some point, why not? I kind of like this format, like as we're going. People have questions, feel free to ask. But yeah, so far, with detox is going well. I feel clear. It's gonna take 45 days, um, and wish I could have gone on that interview when I was a bit more prepared. But he had prepared notes. I didn't. He was also good too. He kind of drew me into a few traps in discussion. Um, Australians for me are always kind of hard to read. They have this degree of sincerity, but then it just never really plays through. Except with Joel. Joel Stremski was a great guy to the end. And this conjecture that I went into his bag is ridiculous. Me and Joel were at such a friendship level that money was being exchanged back and forth. We were buying stuff. We booked like VIP suites in Dnipro before we went, and it's just like it was so hard to keep track of the money because we both knew that we might not come back alive. And the last thing that he did for me was send me $600 when he found out that I wanted to leave Chosen. But then he died, and I didn't leave Chosen. And the UTech is with some Ukrainian guy at the front. Hopefully, he's still alive. I don't have my EOTech with me. I don't need an EOTech. So, yeah, stupid conjecture. But revenge is living well, and things are going pretty decent for me. Finally, getting the treatment I need and the support I need. I'm not under any threat. I have a special status here, which is protected by Polish law and can't be touched. So, c'est la vie. But again, I'm always loyal to NATO itself and the countries within it. Wish I could be loyal to Ukraine to the end, but if you go about publicly denouncing me as a liar, then I kind of gonna just take that as face value as you see me as an enemy. Yeah, just a bit of ramblings, Sunday talks. As you guys can see, I look a lot better, sound a lot better than previous videos. And some, if you guys really want to see some of my stuff, like I encourage you to go to um, Vash, VASH based um, on TikTok, and that's where I'm doing a lot of other stuff. I'm a bit tired, that's for sure. Some of the medications for the withdrawals kind of drain it out of me, but overall, high spirits. Thanks for watching. Ask any questions you want. Sandberg, feel free to try to argue with me here and waste your time. I have the time. Adios.